Okay, hello and welcome everybody. I'm Dr. Katherine Horton. It took some time to set this up because I am using a new software to do my broadcasts. I hope you can see me. Today I will have to double check several times to make sure that you guys can hear me okay. So let me just do my sound check. Okay, that sounds good. Okay, so as most of you probably know, I had to switch software because the Google Hangouts on Air has been discontinued by YouTube. And every single time they do something like that, I always suspect that people were far too effective and far too successful launching their own broadcast, and they had to do something that they, to sabotage it. Because pretty much everybody was using Hangouts on Air, and it was so easy, so natural. It had so many controls. And then suddenly, for no reason, they discontinued it. Very much like the Google Plus and the Google Plus communities. There were communities with thousands and thousands and thousands of people exchanging information about the New World Order, about state criminality, about Secret Service criminality and false flags and all that. And even though it was one of the most successful products, Google discontinued it. So I think what they are actually trying to do is they are trying to put in, extra burdens so that people cannot speak up. So just to give you a comparison, before Google Hangouts on Air was for free, it was super easy to use, and you could just go live and you knew exactly what you were doing. Now the software that I'm using now costs me actually $150 per year, which isn't too bad over a year. But still, there are many people who just cannot afford it, and yet they do need a voice. So, why put on that extra burden? Also, the entire, technical infrastructure is much more complex with the software that I'm using right now. So, but I'm so pleased to see you all, and I wanted to do a broadcast for a very, very long time. Many of you noticed that I've gone silent for several weeks. Now, there were several reasons for that. Number one, I am physically exhausted from the torture. I have been really mauled as I was trying to put things into place. I have suffered quite a few threats against my family, against relatives, against friends. I will also show you one threat that is fairly new by a person you all know. And, I really needed a break. This wasn't a holiday, unfortunately. Switzerland was beautiful this summer, but I couldn't enjoy it at all because I still had to do administrative tasks. So there's quite a heavy load on me right now because many of you know that my marriage was broken up. So my husband and I, we are undergoing a divorce. And even though I'm emotionally fine with that, and that's not the burden, there's a huge administrative burden. Okay, so there's a lot to prepare for that, and sorting out things and dividing up property. So all this sort of stuff. With property, I mean furniture. We don't actually own property all around the world, or my situation would be much different. But anyway, so this is what I've been doing. It was not the case that I was neglecting you guys. It was not the case that, I just had a holiday and I was just living on the high hog. Not at all. And also during this time, the torture went extreme. So right now, I seem okay during the broadcasts because they do tone it down a bit, although they do continue to shoot me in the head. They do continue to torture me with the chip implants under my scalp, but it's nothing, absolutely nothing compared to how they cripple me throughout the day. Okay, so by now, out of 7 days per week, 5 days, I'm just crawling on my gums and I'm utterly crippled by pain. And I mean pain that's actually not just pain, but also currents being applied to my brain. Sometimes I literally am dragging a leg because of the brain damage. Sometimes I can't use an arm or I can't really express myself. And, it's extremely exhausting. And all this maiming and gunning throughout the night is a very, very heavy load. Okay, so these are crimes against humanity, and non-stop maiming is what Jean-Philippe Gaudin and Alex Younger are doing, okay? And I want you to know that we know exactly who's doing this. And also General, what's-his-face, Herigian, I still don't know how to pronounce his surname. Whoever the hell is the head of the NATO Space Command, it is these war criminals who are slaughtering people around Europe and the US, okay? We know exactly who they are, we know exactly what they are doing, but we cannot stop them because The police is an entirely fraudulent Masonic architecture. The police is actually part of the organized crime syndicate. I am aware of really hundreds, absolutely hundreds of victims, but I'm not aware of a single police investigation anywhere on 3 continents. I'm not aware of a single police investigation in Europe, anywhere in the US, or anywhere in Australia. Not a single one. I don't know what the police is doing. You know, as far as I'm concerned, they might as well be just watching porn and masturbating, or, you know, making snuff movies, right? And I think we'll find out about some police officers that that's exactly what they were doing. But anyway, that's for another broadcast, you know, but there's a lot of evidence. But the bottom line is that even police officers in the United Kingdom have complained that there is a Masonic architecture, a network of Masons in the UK police forces, and they are preventing good police officers from ever getting a promotion, okay? So that is basically the big fat Masonic super architecture that I kept talking about, and it is interconnected with the intel agencies. So for this reason, there are no police investigations anywhere. All counter-terrorism units or terrorism fighting, you know, government, infrastructures and institutions are complete Masonic fraud as well. They are conducting terrorism, okay? So if you look at Homeland Security, so-called, in the US, it is actually modeled on the fricking, you know, SS in Germany, and it's conducting terror all across the United States, okay? The fusion center is the same. They are running the gang stalkers. They are conducting the terror networks. They are conducting the terror attacks, the assassination attempts against Americans. Okay, so this is the situation we are in. We do not have a functioning police force. We do not have any counter-terrorism efforts anywhere. And it will turn out that every single, or the vast majority, I should say, the vast majority of elected so-called leaders in government are actually also members of this transnational criminal organization. They're all parts of the criminal syndicate. Okay, so this is the situation. But I want you to be aware that behind the scenes there are efforts to shut these people down. We know exactly who they are, and court cases are coming. Okay, so this is what I want you to know. But also this explains why it is so hard on the victims. So if you are a victim and you're despairing that you can't get anything done, remind yourself that that is because you are being gunned in the head by military weapons. You are trying to live your life under conditions that are set up to ensure your death. Okay, so you're fighting for your life most of the time. If you're fighting for your life, the fact that you can even just sit there and hold a thought or go grocery shopping is a small miracle. Okay. So for all the victims, maybe you feel the same as me. I mean, my current work capacity is about 1%, if that, of my former capacity. Okay. And what you see on these shows is no measure of how I'm coping during the day, because I'm much, much worse. Okay. But now on to the good news. Okay. I have so much to tell you because there are a lot of good news. Number one, now that I talked about, you know, how miserable I am and, you know, how hard my life is, I also would like to talk to you about stuff that I figured out how to cope with this stuff. Okay. So the way, and actually I will get into that later, into the coping and the good news. Okay. But the very first one is probably the most urgent thing I need to tell you. Okay. The most urgent thing is that there's a deadline. There's a deadline on your tick box affidavits, okay? And this deadline is not an absolute deadline, like after that you will never ever be able to submit an affidavit. That is not how it is, but it is the deadline if you want to submit an affidavit that I will file in my court case. Okay, if you file your affidavit in my court case, because there are crimes being committed against you right now, these are crimes in progress, and all of these crimes so far, the ones I can make out, anywhere in the US, in the UK, but also in, you know, unofficial crown colonies like Germany, okay, they are all going back to the Crown Corporation or the British Crown. Okay, so even if you are in the US, as Michael McKibben has found out, American intel was set up and at the top is controlled by Britain. by things like the Privy Council and the, you know, collective of lords and sirs and all that sort of stuff. So you actually have a claim in the London High Court because the criminals are British, and the US, believe it or not, is to this day still a crown colony. Okay, this is why every single last penny of the Inland Revenue Service's money goes wholesale to the City of London. Okay, so you might think you are paying taxes and out of that they are funding schools and hospitals and streets, but that's not how it is. Every penny you pay into the IRS, you pay directly to the City of London, and I think, you know, by proxy into the Vatican Bank, okay, your slave owners. And every single time your government wants to build a hospital or roads or just run the government, they take every year a new loan, okay, a big fat new loan. And that's why it is physically impossible to ever pay off the debt. It's set up to be physically impossible, and it is set up to explode exponentially by the mathematical trick of interest on interest. That is inherently nonlinear, okay? So this is how you and the US were enslaved, but the upshot of that is you are a crown colony, you are being run by Britain, and therefore you do have a claim back in the heart of the Death Star in London, okay? Believe it or not, that's just how it is, okay? So the way to turn this around, I, for example, am a mutilation slave of MI6. I got chipped in the UK. They started the overt harassment in the UK, and then MI6 followed me absolutely everywhere around the world. Okay, now, even though I'm here in Switzerland and I'm being stalked and harassed and maimed and terrorized by Jean-Philippe Gaudin and his criminals, he's still working for Alex Younger. It was not his idea to just pick me out at random and then, you know, harass me and terrorize me. He actually does it for MI6. Okay, there's a direct link, and they keep reminding me, and they keep putting in those British references. In fact, they are eager that I remember that MI6 is involved, because they keep parading around with Union Jacks. And, you know, I've seen, for example, just the last 2 weeks, so many cars with British license plates every single time I leave the house. They want to prime me to think, oh, MI6, MI6. I know, guys, okay? I'm not going to forget anytime soon, okay? But so the point is that we are all connected at this center spiders, you know, the hub of the spider's web, which is London, which is MI6, okay? MI6 in turn, ironically, loops back to Switzerland, because MI6 is just a local branch office of Vatican Intel, okay, which is headquartered here in Switzerland. But nevertheless, right, if we just look at the official, how it's actually run and what's already in the public domain and what has been admitted by, for example, the former head of MI6, Sir John Scarlett, you know, it's still MI6 that's controlling all this. Okay, there's a quote by Sir John Scarlett where he's gloating about how, oh, MI6 can, you know, pull off, you know, a mission anywhere in the world. Why? Because they own the lot. Okay, because the British Empire was never dissolved, never. Okay, it's still the same structure. Now, the reason why this is relevant for you in the US is because you have a claim against the crown. You are a crown colony, and you can sue the crown in London. If you are in Australia and you realize there's a genocide program running, well, that is controlled from London. You are part of the Commonwealth. You for sure can sue in London. Okay, you can sue against the crown. And Germany, for example, many people don't know that, but Germany is still a colony of the Allies. The Allies were, okay, one part was in Russia, where I can say that there are also, you know, Knights of Malta. So they again loop back to the Vatican and the Vatican crime cartel. But in the western part, you have Britain in the north, then you have a bit of France, and then you have America in the south. Okay, so these are the three colonies. Now, out of those, America and Britain are the same entity for sure, and it's now publicly documented. Okay, so you are basically in the south of Germany, you are a slave colony of the crown via the proxy of the crown colony of America. In the north of Germany, you are a slave colony of the crown straight out. Okay, so there we go. So if you are in Germany or in Australia or New Zealand or, you know, in the US, you do have a claim against the Crown in London. Okay. So this is the logic how it's set up. Now, the advantage of that is that, first of all of us victims, we are connected through the Five Eyes crime syndicate. The people conducting this criminality against us are the Five Eyes. So the Five Eyes intelligence collective is the intelligence agencies of America, of Canada, of Britain, of Australia and New Zealand. So you can see it spans the globe. It's like an axis of evil across the globe, right? That's exactly what it is. It's like this big backbone, the nervous system of the global organized crime cartel. But what that means is that every single person in Canada, in the US, in Australia, New Zealand, or the UK, or other crown colonies like Germany, can quote other victim cases as supporting evidence of criminality by the Five Eyes. Do you understand what that means? What it means is that when you're preparing a court case, it's like a big hoover, if you get it right, and you can hoover up all the victim cases as supporting evidence and, you know, file it in court because it's the same crime syndicate doing it everywhere. Okay, so that is the story behind it. Now, please let me just quickly check that you guys can still hear me because I'm a bit nervous with this new software. Okay, this sounds good. Now, so the point of this is the following. I'm going to file in London and I need as many supporting witness statements as I can get, because the crimes against me and my family are highly complex. They include nation-state level hacking. They include human trafficking, medical trafficking, assaults with directed energy weapons, non-consensual implanting, implant torture, remote neural monitoring, neurotech assaults, housebreaking, car sabotage, assassination attempts, everything. Oh yes, murder of relatives, murder of pets, torture of pets, and on and on and on it goes. Now, every single one of those offenses is a serious criminal offense. But it's also set up to be very, very hard to prove and to have plausible deniability. The plausible deniability goes out of the window when you place one victim testimony next to the other and you can show that it's the same program. Okay, and every single victim will, first of all, vertically within one victim case, have so many offenses, it is impossible for so many offenses to be suffered just by bad luck. Okay, so there's a program. But when you place one victim next to the other, you can see that across horizontally between victim cases, every single offense matches up. Okay, these people are reporting the same. And when you have assembled this matrix and you can look at individual victim cases and go through what offenses they suffered and then compare between victim cases, the entire cases, the entire criminality, who is doing it, what they are doing and how, is clear. Okay, so it is for this reason that I need as many victim cases as possible to be able to build this big matrix. And the more things you can testify about, the better. Now, because the technology is so advanced, you might not be able, as a civilian, as a one person, as an individual victim who's maybe really isolated and doesn't have much money, it might be physically impossible for you to prove a certain offense. For example, remote neural monitoring. Okay, you would have to have a PhD in neuroscience and engineering and telecommunications and a bunch of other things to be able to prove it yourself. And you would also have to have tens and tens of thousands of dollars to buy the equipment. You don't have that. So what I'm doing is I'm using testimonies under oath and I'm putting them side by side to prove that people who have never met each other, have no financial links, have no interests, you know, to kind of lie for each other, are reporting the same thing. And I'm going into the court and I'm saying, we as victims cannot be expected to individually go and get PhDs in neuroscience and weapons technology and telecommunication infrastructures and a million other things to prove this. We do not have the money, especially not under these government targeting programs. So those testimonies and that type of analysis is the only thing that that's physically possible to be done. Okay, so that has to be good enough for the court. The court cannot expect us to do something that is physically impossible just to save our lives. Okay, they can't turn back and say, oh, sorry, this evidence isn't good enough. We will, or they will continue to maim and mutilate you and kill your relatives and your pets because you couldn't prove this technical little thing at the end. Okay, well, if any court says that, they are basically supporting genocide, and at that point, it is an illegitimate court. Okay, so this is the logic. Now you know the big plan, but what I really want is I want you to support my court case if you're a victim or if you're an expert with an affidavit. This could be a victim affidavit or an expert affidavit, or maybe both if you're an expert and a victim at the same time. For example, Karen Melton Stewart, the NSA whistleblower, she's both an expert because she worked for NSA for 28 years, but she's also a victim. So in her case, that would be a combined affidavit, okay? So it could be both. It could be an expert affidavit or a victim affidavit. But please prepare it now, because the legal year, so the legal term, starts in October. That's when the courts open, okay? And that's when we can really file and get this stopped. It took me, I think, a total of 3 years, over 3 years by now, to assemble all the evidence. But we do have it. We have about 20 victim affidavits already. With those alone, I can prove a global program. But I need more affidavits to color in the details, to prove what exactly they are doing, that they are causing brain damage, that they are trying to disable your limbs, they're trying to cripple you, they're doing financial sabotage, and all this sort of stuff. The more people testify, the more rock solid this gets. And remember that in turn, if you testify, if you write an affidavit, you in turn can use everybody else's affidavit to support your own case, okay? And the reason why you can do that is because you're using the same tick box format, right, as everybody else. And everybody else also has testified, number one, under oath with a signed statement of truth and with their signature witnessed by a person entitled to administer oaths, and has supplied photo ID. That is the highest level of testimony that I can gather on that's out there. Okay, so you will have the highest standard of affidavits to support your own case. That's the logic. So now you know the plan. And one other thing I would like to say is that if you are testifying, and if you're preparing your victim affidavit, I know it from my own case, and I know it from all the other people who spoke to me, you will get retaliation. But then again, you get retaliation and you're on a death camp program anyway, if you're a victim, okay? So, but what I would like to do is, I'm sorry, to complete the affidavit, unfortunately, you have to go through this and deal with the retaliation, but there's an entire section where you can write down that you have suffered retaliation, okay? So that will be the penalty on your domestic intelligence agency and your fusion center and whoever else is involved in your country, okay, because you will testify about the retaliation. But also, when you tick the boxes that you have suffered retaliation, I can go onto court and I can request an injunction, not just against the attacks against me, but again, also an injunction against attacks by the Crown against any of the witnesses. Do you understand? Now, if you do not fill out an affidavit, there's sweet little I can do for you. I can help you. You can sign up for consulting and counseling, and I can tell you exactly how they're killing you, but I can't help you. Okay, but as soon as you have written an affidavit, I can file it as part of my court case. Okay, and I can say, look, this is a witness who is also testifying about having already suffered retaliation. We already have evidence that the intelligence agencies, including MI5, including the BND in Germany, including here in Switzerland, will kill. Okay, they are out. That's their job, basically. Okay, to kill with impunity is their job. So I want to go into court and say these are, number one, all these Holocaust victims. They are also witnesses. They want to come forward. They want to testify. And I think over half of you have, or the people who have already testified, you also testified about the fact that you know about other victims in your family or in your community. So in other words, when you are testifying, you are, doing your, I would say, humanitarian duty, or societal duty to protect others who are maybe weaker than you. You might have children or elderly parents, or maybe there are, people with disabilities in your community. You know that they're being targeted. You need to testify because you might be stronger than they are. Okay? As hard as it is on you, all this targeting, some people are hit even worse. So, you have to be able to testify, but you need the protection of the court to be able to do so, because we are dealing with murderous serial killers here. Okay? Every single intelligence agency in the Western world is staffed by serial killers. That is their job. That's how they are groomed. That's how they're selected. And that is what they're there to do. Okay? To kill with impunity for the global organized crime cartel. Okay? So the entire logic, what I'm trying to set up here is that if you testify, if you go through all this, pain and stress and having to relive everything they did to you and the work to fill out the affidavit, what you get back in turn, what's in for you is, number one, as soon as you've completed the affidavit, you have by now already 20 affidavits, and this number is going to grow, that you can use directly, okay? And on top of that, if you submit your affidavit to me, which you don't need to, right? But if you submit it to me, I will file it in the High Court in October, and I will ask for an injunction, against attacks and retaliatory attacks by the Crown against you. And the Crown is both in the UK, it's in the US, it is in Australia, New Zealand, and also in places like Germany. And through the MI6 network and the power that the Five Eyes hold, they are not just threatening normal people, they're also threatening other intelligence agencies. I don't think they have to do too much threatening because they are all part of Vatican Intel, okay? But still, should there ever be any intelligence agency that doesn't want to genocide their own population, the Five Eyes would descend down on them as well. And because, everybody working for an intelligence agency is bound by the Official Secrets Act and stuff like that, omerta, the mafia's omerta, and they all work in secret, well, they're even easier to slaughter because nobody would know. They can't have YouTube channels and all this and tweet about the abuse they suffer, right? So this is why the Five Eyes are a global terror network, and they will also put pressure on other intelligence agencies around the world, okay? They will make them also kill you if they need to. Okay, so this is what we're dealing with. I'm not trying to color it, put on rose tinted glasses. No, this is what we're dealing with. But also be aware that there's a very tight schedule. They want to genocide, 2/3 of the world population in the next 6 years. So the injuries that are inflicted on you today are such that they are intended to kill you within the next 5 years. Through cancer, through aneurysms, through heart attacks, through biowarfare, through whatever they are using. But if you're a victim, don't misunderstand, they want you to die. Okay, gunning you and torturing you and raping you is not to make you healthier, prettier, and generally happier, right? It is to kill you. So keep that in mind. If you need some sort of drive to get going, remember, they want to kill you, they want to kill your family, they want to kill the most vulnerable because they're a bunch of Nazis and they only want these Übermenschen, okay, who are connected to synthetic telepathy and all this sort of stuff. So your entire community is to be devastated and replaced by a Nazi super ideal. That's the goal here, okay? So the upshot for you is now, I hope you understand what's in for you, okay? You get support. You're meant to get an injunction as well, but for that you have to complete your affidavit. And if you want that, the deadline for you to complete the tick box affidavit is the 31st of August. It doesn't leave you much time, okay? So complete it by the 31st of August. I've put in a safety buffer after that, okay? So if you're late by a day or two, I might be able to accommodate you, but that's it, okay? Because I need to file it now. So the affidavit has been out. Once you get going, it doesn't take that long to fill out, actually. The hardest thing is to overcome your, what the Germans call the inner Schweinehund, so the inner hog dog, okay? So the inner pig that's just lazy and just wants to wallow, okay? If you overcome your inner inertia, right, and natural procrastination, once you get going, it's actually quite rewarding, because once you are in the habit of just ticking the boxes and say, when did this start? What did they do to you? Every single tick that you set on the affidavit feels like, oh man, I've just fought back. And yes, you have. You put it into writing, okay? So it is a very rewarding thing. And then once it's down, once you have it all assembled, well, that affidavit is a lasting document, okay? And remember that crimes against humanity do not have a limitation period. So the work that you're doing now will benefit you until the end of your life, and can even benefit your descendants in terms of compensation and also and this sort of stuff. Okay, so this is the plan. Now, I banged on about this for a very long time, but I hope you all understand the importance. You all need to, I'm just reading the chat. Thank you so much for your messages and for your kind messages. It really counts. It makes a huge difference to get positive messages, not just for me, but also for all the other victims who are listening. Okay, so that is always a very, very good thing. Now, let's get on to the other stuff. So, oh yes, now with this new software, let me, for the first time, try to share my screen. And okay, let's see how it goes. So, okay, so to fill out the affidavit, go to my website, Stop 007, okay? You have seen it probably a million times, but I have to show it one more time because there are always new victims coming. So stop007.org is the URL, and you go to the very first link. The second link is all the affidavits that have already been submitted. So if you are a victim, you go here, and this takes you to the very first link where you can download the affidavit. Okay, there's an introductory video here, and there's a second introductory video down, hang on, here. Okay, so there are several here that you can follow, and you can use these videos to motivate you. The first one is all about the mental preparation and getting going, and the second one is detailed instructions how to fill out the affidavit. Okay, so it's all there, and there's here are the timestamps in the very first video. So this one here, you can actually look at the contents of the video, and it says which section, you know, what is the timestamp and which section is that about, you know. And this one here, section 72, are specifically threats and retaliation for writing the affidavit. Okay, so that's a very important one, and you can see it's all explained here. The documents you need are listed here. Please download the explanatory notes and keep them forever, because this is the legal document with my signature that guarantees how your affidavit will be used. The second one is the one you need to download and fill out using OpenOffice, and please only OpenOffice, not Microsoft Word. The link to OpenOffice is up here, and I used OpenOffice because it's for free, unlike Microsoft Word. And then finally, down here, this is the PDF format. If you want to print it off to have it look, you know, or maybe fill out a first draft on paper, you can do it here. But remember that you have to fill out the electronic form. And that's because I cannot handle 94 pages scanned in, okay? I need it in this form. And once you filled out the affidavit in OpenOffice, you just press a button at the top bar, you turn it into a PDF, and you send me that. And this makes the PDF searchable. Okay, it's much easier to handle it. Okay, so everything you need to know is up here. And if you already have submitted an affidavit, please check on the second link that your affidavit is actually appearing down here, okay, in this long list. And what I have right now is here per continent, 8 affidavits from the US, 2 from Canada, 2 from the UK, and then 1 from Belgium, Russia, Netherlands, and Bulgaria each. There's also Japan and Iran from Asia, and the current sex ratio is 9 male and 9 female. So it's very equal, okay? So, and it's the equality is important because men and women are kind of chipped similar, but then also the way they are doing the rape is slightly different, you know, the type of attacks differ slightly. So if you're a man or if you're a woman, you know, sometimes the female or the male affidavits will have more relevance to you. Okay, now to all the investigators out there in the world, there is already evidence you can work with here, okay? So you can just look at all these people, okay, and you can look at the crimes that are being conducted. What is not appearing in these affidavits, and that's the other thing that I would like people to start preparing, okay, because that will be phase 2, is, oh, sorry, I will get onto that. Okay, so phase 2 will be much more detail and actually naming names. But if you want to understand what the overall plan is, it's outlined in this video, the plan for 2019, and I'm following this plan down to a T. I'm slightly delayed by 2 months or 3 months in the execution, but that was to be expected because I'm just being attacked so hard. But I'm still following this plan here, okay? Now, what is important, let me go back to the victim affidavits here. What is super important is that this affidavit, okay, if I show you the PDF format, at the very end, it has a perpetrator list, okay? So that's the last here, where people, it's not just 3 perpetrators you can name, you can add lines to this and name as many perpetrators as you like, but the perpetrator list is anonymous. Now, what I want you to prepare already, okay, for the next phase is the naming names perpetrator list, okay, where you actually name the precise name and you can put in the address and the telephone number or the email and Twitter handle of all the people who committed offenses against you. And with offenses, I also mean cyber terrorism. I also mean online and cyber libel over social media, or just terrorism or gaslighting and persistent stuff, okay? Now with gaslighting, you have to be a bit careful because sometimes, you know, victims might just, other victims, genuine victims might say something that also applies to you by pure chance. But then again, I think if you're an experienced victim, you know exactly who's gaslighting you and who's just saying, you know, stuff randomly that kind of sounds like harassment scripts that you have suffered from as well, you know. But anyway, I really want every single last perpetrator in the second version of this. And the second version will be for the court cases. Okay, so the first one is to file these affidavits to get protection for you. And then once you have this protection from the courts, you know, you can file your named list. Because also we need to use the courts to force an investigation. Okay, sadly, this is the case. Now, let me check. Okay, it looks like the screen sharing, hallelujah, actually worked fine. Okay, so what I want from you is, first of all, the tick box affidavits completed with it signed before a person entitled to administer oaths. These are people, sometimes they work at banks, at local councils, in some countries, even in the post office. Everybody can get one, okay? You don't need a full notary, but I want your tick box affidavit by the end of August. So get going. End of August, everybody who wants to be part of my court case as a witness, please file, okay? Now, what I want you to start doing as well, because as you're filling out the tick box affidavit, you will remember stuff and stuff will occur to you and all that. Open Word documents or Open Office Write documents, and in numbered paragraphs, start writing a named perpetrator list, okay? Name names and include for every person an entry and a short description of what they have done against you, okay? And in the named perpetrator list, which you will just keep for yourself for now, you put in as many details about these people as you can get, okay? What's their name, what's their telephone number, their email, their home address, or where do they work, what's their workplace, their social media handles, their license plates, anything that you have on them, because that will be the basis of investigations. When you have any of these, like social media handles, a telephone number, an email, or license plate, we can find out who they are. Okay, we can't do it right now because we don't have access to the state databases, and the people who have access, like for example the FBI and the European police forces, well, they are part of the criminal syndicate and they're not running investigations. But once we go into court, we can force this information out. Okay, so that's the idea. So write the name perpetrator list. The other list that you should also write named is the victim lists, any other victims you are aware of by name. Okay, and these lists have to be separate. Okay, not that you confuse victims with perpetrators. So one Word document or open office document with a list of perpetrators, a list of victims. Okay, and the list of victims is important because there might be victims who are either too scared to come forward or can't come forward because they are, have positions that they just can't speak up, or they are scared, or they are disabled, or they have reasons why they can't. Still, they are in danger. So if you know that they too are being assaulted, write this list, okay? Because it's what we're dealing with now is a global Holocaust. So we need, we basically need to save everybody who is, a victim of this. And then the third list I want you to write is the list of murdered victims, okay, or people who died from the injury or died under suspicious circumstances, and you think it's to do with this targeting program. And if there were, for example, a very large number of deaths in your building or in your street, include the names of the victims, or maybe you don't know if they are victims or not. Maybe you think, oh, they might have died from natural causes. But the reason why that's also important, any unusual deaths should be listed. It's because there are weapon systems being deployed in the neighborhoods, like directed energy weapons hidden at neighbors, like 5G antennas, which are an integrated weapon system. And this is a global genocide. And yes, they do start to, kill people in a street, and they started to get rid of those people where they thought, well, either they don't have any relatives or friends, they're isolated, nobody's going to ask, after them and so on. But those people also have a right to life, okay? So any unusual deaths, I want to have the list of people who died where you think it's unusual or, very high frequency of deaths or blah, 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 okay? So perpetrator list, named, victim list, named, and the deceased list, named, okay? And we need all three. We absolutely need all three. Right now, please don't send me the named lists, okay? I couldn't run an investigation on all of them anyway. And by sending them to me, it's instead of keeping it decentralized, if you pull it all on my head, right? I mean, I'm just going to be assassinated because I have access to all this sort of stuff, okay? So not yet. Wait for the injunctions first, court protection first, and then you can name names. If you are fearing for your life, it might be a good idea to write these lists and then distribute it amongst your friends and your family, those people who you trust for safekeeping. Okay, so that's the order of business. And now we are working to a very tight schedule. So get these tick box affidavits done, get the written lists done, and then I'll tell you what to do after that. But this is the idea, okay? So now, the other good news is that I managed to recruit, in addition to the people who have filed affidavits to support my court case, in writing, I have also managed to recruit victims who are willing to testify. And with the people who are willing to testify, I'm selecting those who are highly articulate, have done a lot of research, and can really, make a stance for all the other victims. So I have hand-picked a few, and I'm networking with them, and I'm building this up. I'm just letting you know that I'm collaborating with these people, number one, so that you know that, behind the scenes, things are happening, things are being prepared, but also you need to know that there are other people who will need, protection, and the general public needs to be aware of these people, okay? So to give you an example, it was, I think it was yesterday. Yes, yesterday. Today is Sunday. Yesterday was Saturday. I had a very good conversation with two witnesses who will be testifying at my court case. So I agreed to testify. And I spoke to them. Okay, so one is in Europe. The other person is in the United States. And it was a very good, very productive phone conversation. I outlined my strategy, my legal strategy. It's not a secret. It is just a common sense thing that I've just outlined. Okay, so how I'm going to proceed. But then what happened is that at night, okay, I went to bed very late in the early hours. And then I was tortured awake after about 3 hours or something like that. And so I woke up and I was absolutely in agony, and I got up. So I sat up in bed, I pulled, I got my laptop, and I was just about to send a public notice about the fact that I'm being tortured, my hashtag abuse log and Holocaust log. And when I did so, I cut my foot on a large piece of glass in bed. And I thought, where the hell does that come from? Okay. And I thought that I'm pretty sure nobody was here. Nobody broke in, because that's the standard thing. They do housebreaking and scatter poisons and everything around your home. But I thought, hang on, nobody was in my home. So what just happened? And I started searching the bed, and it was covered with massive large shards. Okay. So I can show you what those looked like, because I took a photograph. Hang on, let me just share my screen, just so that I'm not making this up. Okay, so this is the thing I cut my foot on. I hope you can see. Hang on, does this work? No, you can't see it. Okay. Yes, you can see it. It just took some time. Okay, so this is the large shard that I actually cut my foot on. Okay, but the other thing, hang on, I'll show you another one, and then I'll show you what this was. The other one looked like this. Okay, a massive piece of glass, also very, very sharp. And I was just thinking, how the hell does this end up in my bed? Okay. And then in the end, I looked around and I discovered that what they had done is they had shattered the glass cover, okay, of this lamp. I hope you can see this. I have to check. Hang on, I have to check the live stream. So, hang on. Okay, yes, you can see it. Brilliant. So, what this is, what you can see is, this is, you can see the light bulb of this little lamp. It's a halogen lamp. And there was a glass cover on there, and the lamp was actually positioned as you can see it now. So it was kind of vertically up. And because it was up, the surface of the glass was exposed to directed energy weapon gunning. Okay, and they actually shot this thing, and it shattered into many pieces above my head, above the bed. Isn't that nice? So I didn't hear the shattering, but I just woke up to, all this glass lying around. And then I was trying to track down every last piece of glass on my bed. And what I did is I think I managed to find everything. And I put it together as one big puzzle. Okay, but then when I did that, what I could do, let me just show you, is I can show you exactly how this thing shattered. Okay, so this is the glass cover here. Sorry, this is some rust on the baking tray that I'm using to shield in bed. So this is the glass cover, and you can see that there's a round disc that's almost intact, and then the breakage goes out linearly. Okay, now if I had to guess, it looks like a shockwave. It looks like glass shattering as the shockwave goes outward, right? And here you can see that's almost like an oval that's perfectly intact. It kind of broke there, but otherwise you can see it. And if I had to make an educated guess, that was the pulsed energy projectile, because the actual overall size of the oval is pretty much the size of the bruises I wake up with every morning. Okay, so if I had to guess, what you can see here in the inner circle is the beam size, and they just hit this thing. And if I had to guess, the reason why it's an oval and not a circle is because they hit the glass at a slanted angle. I think the beam, or the pulsed energy projectile, was actually circular, and it hit the glass, but the glass was at a slanted angle, and that's why you ended up with this, number one, with this oval, And number two, with this breakage here, okay, because already the wave was traveling through the glass here, the shock wave causing these fractures, and then this fracture caught up with this part here, okay? So I think the inner part on the left-hand side kind of indicates the curvature, indicates the circular beam size, and then this thing, the oval to the right, indicates the slanted angle. Okay, now because there's rotational symmetry in this glass, I can't reconstruct how the glass was on the lamp originally before it broke. But as a physicist, this is my educated guess, okay, of how this thing went. Because also, when you look at the density of the breakage here, there's very few shock waves, if you like, here on the left hand side, kind of going up towards 10 and 11 o'clock here, up to the top left. Very few lines there, and then as you're going around the circle downwards to the bottom right, you can see many more shock waves causing breakage. Okay, so I think that supports my theory that the shot hit the glass here on the left-hand side of the oval, and then kind of spread outward. But this happens very fast. Okay, this happens at pretty much. Well, it depends on what sort of shock wave they use. If it's like a sound wave, some people suggest, or a funky electromagnetic wave, it could be the speed of sound or the speed of light. Either way, it's very fast. Okay, so that's what happened. As far as I can make out, I mean, this is the only way I can explain that with the lights off, a lamp shatters after I've fallen asleep above my bed. Okay. How the hell can this be? And I seriously think this was retaliation, because I also showed in a previous video this whiteboard with the denting, where they gunned the whiteboard and dented the metal. Okay, so it's that type of pulsed energy projectile, I think, that hit the glass. So that's the type of retaliation that I'm suffering here, but doesn't matter. We're just going to continue. But now, okay, let me show you some other attacks that I've suffered from. Let me close this. And this guy, okay, you actually know this guy. Where's the thing? Oh, actually, let me start with something else, okay? Let me start with the attacks from YouTube. Okay, let me share my screen, because I would like to show you, where's this? Okay, yes, let me start with that. So I got a message from YouTube. Okay, you know what? I will start with the actual email as I got it, because it's kind of like hilarious to read the email, to be honest. Okay, so here's the email. Let me share my screen. Sorry, I'm a bit slow today because I'm still getting used to this. Okay, so this is the email I got. Okay, from YouTube, and as always, it's no reply, so you can't really file a complaint directly in response. I received this the day before yesterday, and it says, "Hi, Dr. Katherine Horton." So this is my YouTube handle here. "Our team has reviewed your content." Okay, so this implies that there's a team behind it. Interesting. "And unfortunately, we think it violates our hate speech policy. We removed the following content from YouTube: video, Professor Fetzer on the El Paso and Dayton false flags." Interesting. And you can see this is the first strike out of 4. Okay. And they say, "We know that this might be disappointing, but it's important to us that YouTube is a safe place for all. If content breaks our rules, we remove it. If you think we made a mistake, you can appeal and we'll take another look. Keep reading for more details. How your content violated the policy. Content glorifying or inciting violence against another person or group of people is not allowed on YouTube. We also don't allow any content that encourages hatred of another person or group of people based on their membership in a protected group." What is a protected group? They don't define it. "We review educational, documentary, artistic, and scientific content on a case-by-case basis. Limited exceptions are made for content with sufficient and appropriate context and where the purpose of posting is clear." Now, okay, So number one, the thing you need to know is that when I have interview guests on, I don't go on a swearing, spree as I do in my private video broadcasts on my private channel. So when I interviewed Professor Fetzer, it is absolutely impossible that there was any hate speech. Like we were presenting, or he was presenting evidence on the fact that both El Paso and Dayton were false flags and rather bad ones, frankly. And I was adding commentary about the cartel signaling in every single one of these, images that he was showing. Where's the hate speech? And I think it's actually buried here, right? We also don't allow any content that encourages hatred of another person or group of people based on their membership of a protected group or membership in a protected group. I suspect that the crisis actors and the intel agents and this intel, the false flag teams are protected groups. They are protected by the cartel. So basically, Google, CIA-owned Google that owns YouTube is telling us, don't mess with the people we protect. Okay? It's like the fucking mafia, isn't it? So given that there was no hate speech, neither Professor Fetzer nor I did ever appeal for violence against, or in glorifying or inciting violence. I beg your pardon. We were saying that the violence and the terrorism in Dayton and El Paso was fake. There were criminals putting on fake violence to incite terror and to incite violence against others, right? That's what it's about. So it's a complete reversal. And that's typical for the crime cartel, that they actually completely reverse it. Now, what this meant is that on my YouTube channel now, what it looks like here, okay, is that this video, Professor Fetzer on the El Paso and Dayton false flags, is currently removed. Okay, so it says video removed, inappropriate content. And you can just see how the CIA/Five Eyes crime cartel operates, because they will libel you as having incited violence, even though it was the Five Eyes crime syndicate that was conducting terror and violence through the El Paso and Dayton false flags. Okay, so this is very, very important. Now, the other thing that I can show you is that by the time, and this is why they can try as much as they like, but they're not going to be successful with their nonsense. Okay, what I can show you, hang on, is that by the time they removed the video, this is the channel view, it already had 8.6 thousand views. 8.6 thousand views. Now, I can also tell you that I've got reason to believe that YouTube is manipulating down view counts by roughly a factor 10. Okay, depending on how out there you are, how well known you are, and how influential you are, this manipulation rate might be as high as a factor of 100. So anywhere between a factor 10 and a factor of 100 is the, what I kind of on the back of the envelope roughly estimated the manipulation factor to be. Now, what this means is that if they, and I would have manipulated this down because Professor Fetzer is internationally really well known, right? So if I assume the conservative limit of the manipulation of just a factor 10, what this means is that roughly anywhere between 8.6, so rounded 9,000 or rounded 90,000 people have seen this video. Okay, and then you might understand why it's really treading on CIA testicles that this video is out there. Okay, and the views for 8.6 thousand literally just rocketed up. I was amazed because by the time Professor Fetzer and I finished the interview, I looked on the YouTube view, I looked on the channel, and there had already been over 1,000 views just during the broadcast. This is very rare, okay? I remind you, in the early days, I was over the moon if 100 people were watching simultaneously. And when Professor Fetzer came on, 1,000 people were watching it live. Okay, so then, you know, this 8.6 after like a week or something, or however long it has been, that must be manipulated down, okay, by a large factor. But what really pleases me in all this is that they can try to fuck with us, but it's already out of the bag, okay? So what I will do now is I will re-upload this video to Vimeo. I will upload, but actually I'm withdrawing from BitChute because I discovered that this is Sean Ross. I didn't discover it. Sean Ross informed me that BitChute is just down the road from the UK cyber warfare unit, and that BitChute is actually peer-to-peer, which means that they can use that infrastructure to put whatever they want to on your computer, and they can take over your computer and, you know, use it. Now, if peer-to-peer would already be dodgy if it weren't down the road from the UK, you know, cyber warfare unit. But given that that's what it is, there's no way I'm hanging around on BitChute. Okay. Also, as soon as I put videos up on BitChute, I did notice that I was running out of memory, and my computer was processing something in the background that I had no explanation for. So I think that really invited, you know, the UK cyber warfare unit onto my computer. So I'm withdrawing from BitChute, but I'm uploading my videos to Vimeo, and I'm also uploading my videos to RuTube in Russia. Okay, so that's where you will be able to find this video when I have, you know, I will upload it today or tomorrow and over the coming days, so that you can still watch it. Now this from YouTube was just 2 days ago, but I got an even funkier attack, and that was an actual physical threat earlier. And to be precise, it was exactly on the 1st of August. So many of you, many of you might not know, but the 1st of August here in Switzerland is actually the Swiss national holiday. Okay, so I was out and about, and I had actually traveled to Germany, and I was just enjoying the day away from targeting. You know, and I was in Constance actually, and when I was driving in a little traffic jam, because I think all of Switzerland was over there in Constance doing shopping, because everything was closed in Switzerland and everything was open in Germany. So I was stuck in a traffic jam, you know, around Constance, and then I started playing with my phone, and suddenly, okay, I discover that there's this email from, guess who? Robert David Steele, okay? And it utterly got me. I mean, I have to show you what this guy wrote to me because it's absolutely freaking hilarious, okay? But this is the email I got. So now, hang on. Okay, share screen. Hey. Sorry, it's a bit slow today. So this is the email I got from my beloved Robert David Steele. And many of you know that I already put out an entire video about this guy. So imagine my surprise, okay, when I get this video. I hope you guys can read it. Okay, so sent on the 1st of August here in the afternoon at 3 o'clock. That's when I received it, from Robert David Steele, and it was sent to Sarah Webster, who I've never heard about. Okay, it was sent to Sasha Stone, the committee to support the ITNJ. It was also sent to Cynthia McKinney, and I have blocked out, you know, the email addresses of Cynthia McKinney, but also of Sarah Westall, to whom it was sent, simply because I'm not sure if their emails are public. Now, I haven't blocked out the others because Sasha Stone's email is public, Robert David Steele's email is public, and Sarah J. Webster is apparently a journalist, so, you know, people should be able to contact her. And my email is public as well. So that's the only reason why I didn't want Cynthia McKinney and Sarah Westall to be swamped by nonsense. So I didn't, that's why I blacked it out. But okay, so it went to these people, okay, and included was I, but now listen to this, okay? So Robert David Steele writes, remove. And he sends it to Sarah Webster, okay? Remove. You have not provided evidence of your identity and show signs of being mentally challenged, okay? Absent evidence to the contrary, I think you are actually Kevin Annett, demonstrating his mental state by pretending to be someone else. So imagine I'm sitting there in this traffic jam thinking, ooh, this is interesting. So please do not email me again. I am finishing up one lawsuit now. He must be talking about the one he's running against Jason Goodman. And I will, if pressed, consider a lawsuit for defamation against you if you prove to be an actual person. Annette. And Sarah Westall, as well as Horton, was also defaming me on video. I was like, oh my, this has just gotten even more interesting, okay? Right now, all of you are in the piss aunt category, not worthy of a lawsuit. Any more emails from you or any publicly discernible defamatory references to me or Sasha Stone or the ITNJ by any of you, and I will place you on my legal to-do list. If you cease and desist and do not write me again and do not defame me again, I will forget all about all of you. If you persist to include any references to me that my internet if you persist to include any references to me that my internet monitoring will inevitably find, oops, sorry, oh shit, sorry about this. Okay, so here, internet monitoring will inevitably find, interesting, internet monitoring. You will learn what the US federal court version of a porcupine enema feels like, with related actions in Vancouver and London. You will also be placing Sarah Westall and Katherine Horton in jeopardy. I am including Sarah as a CC because she defamed Sasha Stone and myself with her false story about our having anything to do with having Annette detained or arrested at the border. Okay, interesting. I do seem to remember that that's what they threatened, but anyway. I am surprised you are not aware that Annette himself told Sarah Westall that he had been detained at the border by our order, as if we had such power. And she broadcast this on video, thus defaming us directly. Well, I'm sorry if you let somebody speak and he defames you, it was that person defaming you. Okay, we still have a right to bring public what people are saying. Okay, so this is not exactly how it works, but anyway. So Sarah is probably smarter than you are and understands that the federal lawsuit with video evidence that the jury will find compelling will destroy her life. I am including Horton as a CC as well. You are setting these people up for legal destruction from which they will never recover. Okay, Sarah, you should carefully consider deleting all videos in which Annette appears. You are complicit for as long as you publicize this individual. Excuse me, where is freedom of speech in all this, right? In this CIA operative's mind? He has already cost you in ways you may not realize, and that saddens me. Oh, talk about threats. Horton, I think you are well-intentioned, but not nearly as clever as your PhD suggests. You should be. Sorry, as your PhD suggests you should be. I'm already thinking about the repartee. I urge you to take down the offending videos and find new interests. This is my final word. Any more from any of you, and I will open a legal journal and move toward formal legal action. Hear me clearly, all of you go silent and live in peace. Trouble me directly or defame me indirectly, and you will find out what I am capable of. This is my final cease and desist notice. Okay. And I thought, as I was reading this, I was thinking, oh my God, this is Vatican Intel's, 1st of August, Swiss National Day present for me, right? I mean, this is just hilarious. But then read this, okay? I will comment about this, but read what the Sarah J. Webster, who I don't know who that is, wrote that set off Robert David Steele. And it was actually sent to Sasha Stone, it seems, not Steele. Mr. Stone, you are not being truthful. I'm looking at copies of the emails Mr. Steele sent to Sarah Westall and others regarding Reverend Annette, and they are clearly issuing threats against him. Without offering any proof, Steele claims Annette is mentally deranged, should be incarcerated, and that the proper authorities are being notified in order to have him detained and examined. I can send copies of these bizarre emails to you if you like. Perhaps you're suffering a lapse of memory as well as sound judgment. You are also asking me as a journalist to reveal my sources in the British and Canadian governments regarding their alleged plans to incarcerate Reverend Annette. I find this revealing. Let me state that there's no indication that these authorities are seeking to detain or examine Annette, and they have made no move to either contact or detain him, so your claim is mere poppycock. I won't speculate why these unwarranted attacks are being conducted by your group against Reverend Annette, Annette, when according to my sources and records, he did nothing provocative towards your inverted commas ITNJ, besides ask questions concerning his funding and backers, very legitimate questions. He certainly made no personal attacks on either you or Mr. Steele. Your untruthful response and this entire ridiculous episode certainly raises doubts in the minds of any objective observer concerning not only the credibility of you and your group, but the mental and emotional stability of Mr. Steele and those who endorse his paranoid attacks on Reverend Annette, or who sit by and allow themselves to be associated with such criminal behavior. The fact that Kevin Annette has for 2 decades and on his own dime and at enormous cost led the campaign and championed the issues that you and the ITNJ are now claiming credit for should engender more sympathy and support from ITNJ towards him, if in fact ITNJ is a legitimate organization seeking the good of survivors. Your actions cause me to question ITNJ's legitimacy as well as that of you and Steele. I'll make these facts in your reply to me known to my global readership and listenership. Sarah J. Webster. Okay? Woo! And then here there's an entire exchange as well. Okay, so there's only 2 more emails here, and the rest is all notes. So we're reading that in reverse. But so far, the Sarah J. Webster didn't say anything, right, that would warrant this angry rant from Robert David Steele against her and against Sarah Westall, another Sarah, okay, and against me. And as I was reading this in my car, I thought, what exactly do I have to do with this? Well, what I have to do with this is that I've interviewed Kevin Annette, and Kevin Annette seems to be a thorn in the side of the people that Robert David Steele is associated with, okay? What Kevin Annette told me is that the money for the ITNJ comes from MI5, the Five Eyes Crime Syndicate, okay? That tallies with what I have, kind of figured out looking at the cartel signaling on the ITNJ's website. Okay, and the fact that Sasha Stone in the FAQ refers to things like ritualized magic, where magic is written M-A-J-I-C-K. Unless you work for British Intel or the CIA, you would never, ever, ever, ever write magic as how did you write it? M-A-J-I-C-K. Yes, that's right, M-A-J-I-C-K. But if you are a member of the cartel, that's exactly how you would write it, especially combined with the word ritualized, so ritualized magic. Why? Because, rituals and magic, that's very MI6, that's very cartel, that's what they say they are doing against the victims, okay? And the thing with the misspelling is because inside the crime cartel, they are saying that it's like casting a spell. So misspelling is like casting a bad spell against somebody. Yeah. If you're so brain fucked that this makes sense to you, right? That's what you use. But you have to be that brain fucked. In other words, you have to be a member of the crime cartel to ever, or Intel, which is the same, to ever write ritualized magic. So that's what I said, okay? So Kevin Annette said the ITNJ is funded by MI5. I looked at the cartel signaling, not knowing anything about ITNJ's funding, and I said that to me looks like MI5/MI6. Okay, Sasha Stone to me looks very much like an MI6 agent. Robert David Steele is a CIA operative. He is a CIA agent. Why is Robert David Steele so-called, chief counsel? Who would ever make a CIA operative chief counsel when you are dealing with cases related to satanic ritual abuse, child sacrifice, and child abuse. Right? Who would ever make a CIA operative chief counsel unless you're MI5, right? I mean, okay, so it's obvious. In my case, it's pretty obvious, it's right out there. But this is the connection, right? This is why Steele, replying to this Sarah J. Webster, who I've never heard of, involved me and Sarah Westall. It's like we interviewed Kevin Arnett, right? And suddenly there he is going off on one. It's just absolutely freaking amazing. But anyway, so this is the first two emails. Now let's see. Now I'm going to start from the end now and read these two emails, the very first two in sequence, okay, how they were sent. So on the 31st of July this year, Sarah Webster apparently wrote, "Hello, I'd like some information on remarks made by Sasha Stone and Robert David Steele earlier this year on the public internet regarding Kevin Annett. Last March, I published a syndicated article on Reverend Annett. Since he is now standing as a candidate in the upcoming Canadian federal election, he is receiving considerably more media and public attention. Accordingly, I'd like to check some of your allegations and remarks about Reverend Annett that you circulated last March. In particular, Mr. Steele and Stone made direct threats against Reverend Annett in writing, libeled him, and claimed that they were asking the Canadian and British governments to detain him for assessment." Yeah, I actually saw that email. "I have checked with representatives of both governments as well as their security intelligence forces, and they claim to have no such designs towards Reverend Annett. I would appreciate it if either or both of these gentlemen could clarify the remarks regarding Reverend Annett. I'm writing a follow-up piece on the Black Ops campaign against him and will note your response to my inquiry or the lack of it. Sincerely, Sarah J. Webster." Okay, and then it says a copy of my article about Reverend Annett can be found at www.salem-news.com/articles/March 26, 2019 /canada-biggest-cover-up-SW.php. Okay, I'm reading it out in case this link disappears or the video gets manipulated or, you know, a million other things. Okay, so this is the footer, and this is the article establishing the reign of natural liberty, a common law training. Sarah J. Webster, a pseudonym, is a syndicated journalist and a resource person and advisor to alternative media networks on 3 continents. She has been nominated for Journalism Excellence Awards on numerous occasions. Okay, so Sarah J. Webster is a pseudonym. I have no idea who that is, but this is the journalist who apparently wrote this article, right? And this is the letter that she sent, or because the pseudonym, it could be a he, that this person sent to, I would guess, to the ITNJ, okay? Now, this is the reply from Sasha Stone, okay? So here, Sarah Webster, brackets question mark, CC Steele and Broussard. I have no idea who Broussard is. I believe that my deputy Connie, oh yeah, it's an idiot. I believe that my deputy Connie Broussard corresponded to you in this regard on March 22nd, 2019. I will repeat more or less what was stated at the time and request of you. Number 1, kindly submit a verifiable profile on yourself and your press credentials, awards for journalism, which you were nominated for, etc., before requesting anything further. 2, kindly let Connie Broussard have a telephone number or Skype address so that she can fix a meeting face-to-face. Hang on, telephone number, meeting face-to-face? Oops, slip up. If you are Intel, you can figure out who these people are with a telephone number or Skype address, right? But you can't really have a face-to-face meeting with a telephone number. Okay, anyway. I contend that you have not, in fact, checked with the relevant authorities in Britain or Canada. Hang on, Sasha Stone, how would you know? Unless you're MI6. If you have, then please feel free to state clearly to which authorities you inquired and when you made such inquiries. For the record, and to straighten your continued misperception of the evidentiary facts as they stand, nobody threatened Annett. Open brackets, I saw the email, Stone. You did, and Steele did. But anyway, Nor did anyone libel him. You did, Stone, and Steele did, you know, based on what I've seen. But okay. Quite the contrary, our open file on him, doesn't that sound like the Stasi, demonstrate his own vexatious communications, public slanders and threats. Threats proper issuing towards Steele and myself. Bizarre language. Okay, he initialized ask of it. Who the fuck talks like that? He initialized ask of it. I don't know. Okay. He distorted and misrepresented the facts and then took matters into the public domain via interviews with Miss Westall and Miss Horton. First of all, it's Horton. Second of all, it's still Dr. Horton for you, son. Anyway, apparently this was done in an effort to conflate reality on the issue and create controversy, as well as inviting third parties to write complaints to the ITNJ, all of which demonstrate unlawful and injurious actions which can be borne out with clear evidences in hand. To restore the matter to factuality, oh God, where did you go to school, Stone? To restore matters to factuality, Mr. Annett was merely informed by return email that if he continued to send obdurate and baiting letters to myself or Steele, we would likely take relevant steps towards ensuring a cessation of such vexatious behavior. It was indicated that it may well include reporting his behavior to relevant authorities. We stand by the statement. Now, hang on. Open, my personal footnote here. I think Annett asked about the funding of the ITNJ, and then you, Stone, and Steele started threatening him. That's what I remember from the emails I've seen. But okay. I have not published or released a timeline of moronic messages which we have on file from Mr. Annett, as I do not wish to prejudice any appropriate action or forum for remedy, which reserve the right to pursue should he or any of his proxies continue with any of this nonsense beyond a certain point. Finally, I urge you, acting behind the nom de plume, to be cautious about what you choose to publish, citing myself or any of my colleagues in an irregular or misrepresentative fashion hereinafter. Our patience has run dry on this particular matter. You do not have my permission to reproduce anything communicated herein until you have qualified the two requests made at the head of this communication to Miss Broussard. Kindly desist from contacting me again. Sasha Stone. Wow, to be honest, I didn't even read this far about, permission to reproduce communication. I'm sorry, Stone, but Steele just blew that because he just reproduced your communication to me. I included threats, so I'm just making the entire chain, public. And besides, why would you prohibit publication of this if you are suffering from vexatious harassment by Annett? Wouldn't you want the general public to know, Stone? But one of the things I would like to emphasize here is this is now Sasha Stone's signature with the 3 symbols. Number 1 is the Jesuit sun. Okay, this is the freaking Jesuit symbol here with the wreath, or maybe this isn't the wreath, this is the harvesting symbol. So it's like, hang on. And you know how the Jesuits have IHS, H in the middle, and this just has H? Well, this is the fucking Jesuit sun to me, as far as I'm concerned, right? With the harvesting symbol. And this is either, harvesting or the laurels, the laurels of the Caesarean, laurels of the Jesuits, or it's, so laurels, wreaths, or corn for harvesting. These are the 3 meanings that could possibly stand behind it. The next symbol is that of the ITNJ, and if I blow it up, you will see the very same Jesuit sun. I hope you can see it here in the middle. Okay, that's a bit lighter, but inside in blue, light blue on dark blue is the lighter blue on dark blue is the Jesuit sun, the same one with the kind of wavy lines, not straight, but snaky lines. That's the Jesuit sun. So that's the ITNJ symbol here. And then they have 3, 6, 8 little pentagrams. Okay, and then here's his New Earth, you know, nation, and it is the all-seeing eye. I mean, this is an eye, you know, an eyeball here with the iris saying New Earth, like in New World Order. Fucking hell, you know. Anyway, so this is Sasha Stone. Okay, so this is what led to all this. Okay, so you now heard it, and you can replay it as often as you like, and you can make up your own mind. But if we go through it chronologically, okay, so as far as I can see, this person, Sarah J. Webster, whoever that might be, okay, it's a nom de plume, it's a pseudonym. Sasha Stone and Robert David Steele say Sarah J. Webster is Kevin Annett, writing under pseudonym. I don't know. I have no idea. Could be. But either way, whatever this, you know, account under pseudonym wrote is not that objectionable, as far as I can tell. What Sasha Stone wrote, however, is filled with lies, as far as I can make out, because I've seen the threatening emails against Kevin Annett. He published it. We discussed it. Okay, that's just Sasha Stone. Then Sarah Webster replies, again, I don't find it objectionable. I think this is valid questions that I would have. And then come Robert David Steele's reply here, making references to a porcupine in Nima, you know, here. Right now, Sasha Stone never replied to me directly, so I will take Sasha Stone and his email and put it over there because I don't care. Right now, let's just go back to Robert David Steele's, frankly, in my view, threats against me. Okay, let's just go through and analyze what he said. So he says, remove. I think that's his general approach. It's like, remove me. Oh my God, I'm getting emails. Okay, so he says, you have not provided evidence of your identity and show signs of being mentally challenged. Do you notice how both Sasha Stone and Robert David Steele refer to moronic, mentally challenged, mentally unstable, mentally unfit, all these things? So they are in the habit of taking people down, you know, and just smearing them. But always smearing them with the, oh, you're a moron, or you're mentally unstable, you're mentally ill. Well, that doesn't sound like the CIA at all, does it? You know? Okay. So apparently, Sarah J. Webster is mentally challenged. Okay. Absent evidence to the contrary, I think you are actually Kevin Annett, demonstrating his mental state. Again, right? By pretending to be someone else. Please do not email me again. I am finishing up one lawsuit, open brackets, that of against Jason Goodman, close bracket, now, and I will, if pressed, consider lawsuit for defamation against you if you prove to be an actual person, Annett, and Sarah Westall, as well as Horton, who is also defaming me on video. Now, where exactly did I defame Robert David Steele? Because in the video I made just about him, I was quoting his own words, where he was saying that his best friend, or one of his best friends, is a guy, and he was gloating that this guy goes into a country that was taken over by the United States, kidnaps the leaders, and tells these leaders, well, you either tell us what we want to know, or we will bury you here. These were Robert David Steele's words. In other words, Robert David Steele publicly stated that one of his best friends is a war criminal. I am just quoting Robert David Steele's own words, and that's defamation? I don't think so. That is what Robert David Steele said himself. So, you know, I'm sorry. If you don't like that being publicly known about you, don't say such things. Anyway, now, right now, all of you are in the pissant category, not worthy of a lawsuit. Did you see, again, pissant category? Okay, now I consider this to be an affront and a smear, but okay. Any more emails from you or any public discernible defamatory references to me or Sasha Stone or the ITNJ by any of you, and I will place you on my legal to-do list. Now, somebody who has a legal to-do list, number one, has an agenda, number two, has a lot of money, and I don't think that Robert David Steele is a multimillionaire or billionaire by himself. So open brackets, to me, that implies, to me, my personal opinion, which I'm allowed to air here, it implies that he's using CIA money. as in the infinite pool of money of the Crown Corporation. If you are working for the CIA and litigating for the CIA, you're using CIA/Crown Corporation money, and it's infinite. And then you can have a legal to-do list, right? This is what it seems like to me. But anyway, if you cease and desist and do not write me again and do not defame me again, I will forget all about all of you. Now, God, also remember that I put out my video about Robert David Steele months and months and months ago. So how come he's so sensitive now, right? What happened, Robert? I mean, I haven't been saying anything about you for half a year. What happened? How come you're so sensitive suddenly, So, and what I'm implying here is that he's sensitive because something is starting to, move in as a pincer movement around him and the CIA. I would suspect that's why they're very sensitive right now and start, thrashing around. So he says, if you persist to include any references to me that my internet monitoring will inevitably find. Let's just analyze this a bit. So Robert David Steele says to us that he has internet monitoring. Now, you can set up something called Google Alerts, where any text, a title or description, that has a particular string in it, like, a name, like say Katherine Horton, you can set up a Google Alert for Katherine Horton, and the Google search and any new website being searched by the crawlers will notify you if there's a new website. Now, that is not Robert David Steele's internet monitoring. It's the CIA/Google internet monitoring that everybody can use. Okay. Now, when he's saying his internet monitoring, it sounds like maybe he literally is that simple and he just means the Google alert system. Okay. But maybe he means the CIA's monitoring of the internet using NSA software. Okay, in which case Robert David Steele would be doing illegal mass surveillance, or would be employing illegal and unconstitutional mass surveillance to just basically descend down on people he doesn't like, or who's, reveal the fact that one of his best friends is a war criminal. Okay, so if you read between the lines, it's very interesting that he admits to having some sort of internet monitoring that is so sophisticated that any reference to him will be picked up. I suspect that what he means is he's using some sort of NSA monitoring that also goes through the transcripts generated from the audio, so from the spoken word and videos. That's what it sounds like to me, right? That's what I would assume. You will learn, so if you persist, you will learn what the US federal court version of a porcupine enema feels like. I mean, first of all, it is kind of hilarious, but also just really fucking dumb. And third of all, right, it's like, I swear a lot on video, but I don't actually write shit like that in emails because I find it embarrassing. And especially, I don't write it into emails, especially not when I'm threatening legal action, because that daft email will then become part of the court record, So it seems just a childish, it's such a puerile, thing to do. But anyway, I find it revolting. But then again, I'm also revolted by Robert David Steele. Okay, so with related actions in Vancouver and London, very interesting, because he's talking about the US federal court system, but on his legal to-do list, he also threatens to sue in Canada and in Britain. What do have the UK, Canada, and Britain in common? Oh, especially with regards to CIA operative like Robert David Steele. Oh, they are all under the terrorist control of the Five Eyes crime syndicate. Yes, you understand? So Robert David Steele, from the jurisdictions he picked, I mean, hang on, what do I have to do with the US or with Canada or right now with the UK, apart from my targeting? I'm a German national living in Switzerland. So why is this guy picking the Canadian, the US, and the British jurisdiction as a CIA operative? Because he knows that the Five Eyes control those courts and threaten the judges. I would, submit here. That's the only explanation I can find. Okay, so there we are. So you will also be placing Sarah Westall and Katherine Horton in jeopardy. I'm including Sarah as a CC because she defamed Sasha Stone and myself with her false story about our having anything to do with Annette detained, having Annette detained or arrested at the border. I'm surprised you're not aware that Annette himself told Sarah Westall that he had been detained at the border by our order, as if we had such power. You know what, Steele? I think you do have such power because you're CI operative, you're member of the Five Eyes crime syndicate. You seem to have a legal to-do list, which implies to me that you are using the Five Eyes crime syndicate / Crown Corporation's infinite money pools. And with that, I would submit that you do have that power. Okay? And Sasha Stone, if I'm right, and he is an MI6 agent, would have exactly the equivalent power, right? Because he too would be working for the Crown Corporation. Okay. So, and she broadcast this on video, thus defaming us directly. Sarah is probably smarter than you are. Again, notice the references to mental capabilities, and understands that the federal lawsuit with video evidence that the jury will find compelling will destroy her life. Now, who ever threatens to destroy somebody's life, right? Unless they're a member of the crime cartel that aims to destroy targeting victims' lives. Right? So Robert David Steele sounds strikingly like those people who are running the targeting program, right? Interesting. And she broadcast this on video, thus defaming us directly. Sarah is, destroy her life. Okay, now, I'm including Horton as a CC as well. You are setting these people up for legal destruction from which they will never recover. Who threatens such a thing? Who is so certain of legal victory given how corrupt the courts are? Right? I have read blog entries by senior barristers in London saying how unpredictable the judgments are. Open brackets, I think because this barrister didn't know about the special sauce being the Masonic networks and their connections, but that aside. Right, so there are senior barristers in London, experienced barristers, saying how unpredictable the judgments are. And he said, even when I was sure of a case, I still lost, even though I thought it would have been impossible to lose a case. Okay, so who is so certain to destroy somebody using the legal system of the, under the Five Eyes, sphere of influence? Only somebody who is part of the crime cartel, I would submit. But anyway, so Sarah, you should carefully consider deleting all videos in which Annette appears. You are complicit for as long as you publicize this individual. Well, actually, no. I think Sarah Westall is a journalist, and she's allowed to publish opposing views. That's her job as a journalist. Okay, so I don't think that's part of it at all, but anyway. He has already cost you in ways you may not realize, and that saddens me. That sounds like a subtle threat. Like in the world of covert weaponry, I don't think I would be throwing those, threats around, honestly. Okay, so Horton, this is really funny. Horton, I think you are well-intentioned, but not nearly as clever as your PhD suggests you should be. Really? Really, Robert? I think you're fucking with the wrong person with that accusation. May I remind you, Robert, that I got into Oxford for my undergraduate degree, and then I had to separately apply and got into Oxford again for my PhD under even more competition. And you know what? Then I had to reapply to Oxford, and I got in again for the third time after my PhD, and I convinced an entire panel of academics at St. John's College, as one of the most prestigious and the richest colleges in Oxford. And they picked me again for the third time after my PhD. You know what? I think I'm just as clever as my PhD suggests, Robert, because if it weren't that, you are basically saying that the panel, and there were a lot of interviews to get into Oxford, and they were experts in their field, that they were idiots. And then you're suggesting that my PhD panel, okay, were a group of idiots. And you are suggesting that the entire academic panel at St. John's College, Oxford, were a bunch of idiots and they got a, you know, airheaded little ditzy in. So you're basically saying that Oxford got in an idiot who doesn't even qualify for her the standard of her PhD 3 times in a row. No, I don't think you're right, Robert. I think you're just being, you know, a liveless little shit. And I think you're wrong, okay? I think you're wrong. And I think on my website there is even a reference by a professor from Oxford saying what a clever cookie I am in his view, right? So I'm sorry, CIA operative versus a lot of academics at Oxford who just kept, you know, picking me. Well, I think I have to go with the experts, Robert. Sorry. What an idiot, right? I think I am now entitled to call this guy an idiot because he hasn't done the background research on me. He doesn't know who the fuck I am. He doesn't know what my qualifications are. And he, as far as I can make out, is talking out of his ass. Now, the reason why this is very important, and I went through a great detail so that you have it on black and white and you can refer back to this video, is the following, okay? And this is so much bigger than just Robert David Steele, you know, against me here. What this is about is that Robert David Steele and Sasha Stone are, first of all, attacking people. Anybody who criticizes the ITNJ, they are attacking them. They are attacking them in a way that is making references to their mental state. And do you remember how Robert David Steele wrote that Kevin Annett should be psychiatrically assessed? And I also remember distinctly him having said that Kevin Annett will then be removed from the public sphere, right? That's what Robert David Steele threatened. Now he's threatening with court action in the US, and he's saying, oh, you will find out what the federal court system is capable of. Well, the one thing I know about the US federal court system is that your chances of winning against the government are less than 2%. So 98% of the cases are decided in favor of the government, which is the very definition of corruption, okay? That is what corruption looks like. You can just see it in the judgments and your likelihood of winning, okay? So when a guy uses a corrupt court system to threaten and says you will find out what they're capable of, he already automatically says that he is part of that corrupting entity. And we all know what that is. It's the CIA, right? So this guy, I'm sorry to now throw the insult back, but he's so fucking stupid, he doesn't even realize by threatening in that particular manner, he is revealing all his cards. He's revealing that he is not a CIA whistleblower, as he puts it. I mean, there's instances where he said, oh, you know, he is to the CIA what William Binney is to the NSA in terms of whistleblowing. Like, no, William Binney is a math genius and you're a fucking idiot. You know, William Binney blew the whistle. He was bigger than Snowden. He preceded Snowden, right? And I don't know what Robert David Steele blew the whistle on. I mean, I'll be fucked if I know, right? Is there anything I can quote in court? Big whistleblowing about the CIA coming from Robert David Steele? I mean, you tell me, because I don't know, right? So this guy keeps thinking that he's so amazing, but actually he's not. He isn't a whistleblower. He still works for the CIA. He just admitted he's using CIA funds to work off his legal to-do list. He's smearing people with mental health and mental state accusations that are typical for the CIA. He's threatening with a corrupt court case. And he's also such a vulgar proletarian thug that he's threatening women with phrases like a porcupine enema. I mean, right? What a fucking pro, honestly. And you have people like that, right, in the US being paraded as whistleblowers? This is revolting. This is absolutely fucking revolting. So, yeah. That's my view, but it got better. Okay, it got a lot better than this. Now, I'm sorry to bore you, but I have to go through this in great detail because this is all, you know, still ongoing. Let me just check the audio, but there's still some fireworks for you. Okay. Sorry, the screen just froze. I hope you can still see me. Hang on, I think the live broadcast just reached an end. Hang on a second. Oh, okay. So I'm not sure if you guys can still see me or hear me. I hope you still can, because, okay, let me just do the sound check quickly. Yeah, okay, so it's still working. Okay, great. Okay, so sorry, that was just my computer being a bit. Okay, so now it got better than this. Okay, it got a lot better. So what I did when I got this message from Robert David Steele is I thought, okay, he's threatening with legal action. He was threatening me in a lot of different ways. So I just would like to make it clear that I got the threats. So what I did is I replied to him. Okay, so the reply is in this email. Let me just share my screen. And then Robert David Steele replied to me again and threatened me some more. And this is where the fireworks really, you know, kicks off. Okay, so I hope you can see this. Let me blow this up. So again, I've excluded the emails of those people who maybe might want to keep it, you know, private. So after this email from Steele about remove and so on, I just wrote back, dear Mr. Robert David Steele, I'm writing to confirm that confirm the receipt of your threats against me and my family, received today, the 1st of August 2019, Dr. Katherine Horton. Okay, now, hey, yeah, I won my title back. Dr. Horton, he writes back, you know, I feel sorry for you. It is both childish and inaccurate to characterize my earlier email as a threat. Oh, really? The porcupine enema, and you will find out what I'm capable of. Okay. All right. My earlier email was a statement of intention. Yeah, that's what a threat is, Robert, Mr. Chief Counsel of the ITNJ. You know, a statement of intention is a threat when it's threatening. It is a statement of intention. If it had been an act, right, it would be battery or attempted murder or something like that, or an assault. Right, the statement of intention is the threat, you know, Robert. And the cease and desist notice, as any barrister will be happy to explain to you. Well, actually, in the meantime, I did hear the opinion of a barrister, and he actually said that both your first and your second emails qualify as threats, Robert, but, you know, that is an aside. You have fallen prey to a web of fraud with strong insanity overtones. Do you again see the CIA smear of insanity, you know, mental health again here? Save yourself. Take down the videos in which you defame me and make no more public statements that defame me, Sasha Stone or the ITNJ. Hang on, Robert, I didn't actually defame you. I was making references to a direct quote by Sasha Stone to ritualized magic, right? I was referring to the cartel signaling and the symbolism of the ITNJ, and I was making, you know, I've published your already public video where you're referring to your best friend, you know, the war criminal. It's just facts I quoted directly from you lot. But anyway, if you persist, you will be dealt with legally and ethically and ultimately, for you, painfully. Now, isn't that a threat? To be dealt with painfully, right? I mean, to be dealt with legally and ethically is not really a threat in my view, but to be dealt with painfully, for me, painfully, that is a threat. Okay. I find it hard to believe you have actually earned a PhD without understanding both the meaning of the term defamation and your vulnerability to legal action now that I've explicitly asked you to cease and desist. Well, Robert, your claims of defamation go against my claims that I am being threatened by a CIA operative who is a member of a known transnational criminal organization, and I do have the right to make that public, right? if you give me cause, the next notice you receive will be from a barrister in London. I am actually looking forward to find out which barrister in London is working with the CIA. Robert, I think that for the upcoming investigations would be a really good thing, because the legal system and the Bar Association is the next one coming up. Okay. You do not want to be subject to legal action. I will not respond to any future emails out of kindness toward you. I'm giving this one last personal notice and emphasizing to Sarah Westall that she also is in jeopardy if she persists in defaming me with false accusations from a person whose bona fides she has never properly researched. I wish you well. Stop attacking me, Robert Steele. Well, you know what? I remember listening to a broadcast by Sarah Westall where she said that she has spoken to people who are, in the habit of doing background research, and they told her that they have absolutely nothing on Kevin Annett. I remember Sarah Westall saying that in one of her broadcasts. So I think she has researched to the, within her ability and what access she has done her best to research Kevin Annett's background, Robert. But what's a total mystery to, I think, all of us is your background, because that's shrouded in CIA fog mystery, Robert, But anyway, so this was the, second email. Now, I'm not sure if I can actually change the tab. Can you still see this? I hope you can. I just have to check afterwards. So this is now showing my second reply to Robert David Steele. It's very short. This time I put into BCC a group of people who I think should know about these threats for my personal safety. And it says, "Dear Mr. Robert David Steele, I write to acknowledge the receipt of your second threat to me, received today on 1st of August 2019, in which you threaten that I, inverted commas, will be dealt with legally and ethically and ultimately painfully. Dr. Katherine Horton." Now, so this is what I received. Now, the real question is, why did I get it? Why now? Okay, and I genuinely think, and this is what I've heard from behind the scenes, that people on the ITNJ are starting to disassociate themselves from these two, okay, from Sasha Stone and from Robert David Steele. And these people are now finding out why and who could be blamed. But I think the blame actually lies with them. Okay, so that's it. Now, I actually want to finish the broadcast right here because I have been banging on for long enough. I'm sorry that I had to labor all this. I actually wanted to go into much more detail, but while I was speaking, I discovered it's much better to put it into this video now. So in summary, if you're a victim, please fill out the victim affidavit by the 31st of August. After that, please write or while you're doing that, please write your named perpetrator list, your named victim list, victims you know about. And these could be victims who might not have a voice, or community members they are victims, or have said to you, look, I'm suffering from gang stalking or direct energy weapons or whatever, but they might not be able to come forward. And number 3, the list of people you think were killed or murdered or died from the, after consequences of this criminality. So these 3 lists, very important. On the other news, what I reported about was the removal of the interview with Professor Fetzer about the false flags. I think that is very important because it was removed by CIA-owned YouTube. The other thing I talked about today was an attack by the CIA operative Robert David Steele with personal threats directly against me. And the threats, to remind you, were that I will be dealt with, legally, ethically, and ultimately, for me, painfully. And the other threat was also that if I persist and make references to him, his internet monitoring will inevitably find it, and I will learn what the US federal court version of a porcupine enema feels like, with related actions in Vancouver and London. Okay, and he also said that Kevin Annett is setting these people, as in Sarah Westall and me, up for legal destruction from which they will never recover. Okay, and he also said that I'm nearly not as clever as my PhD suggests I should be, and I should be taking down the offending videos and find new interests. And he said, if we don't, so if we take down the videos and all of us go silent, we will live in peace. But trouble him directly or defame him indirectly, and we will find out what he is capable of. I think that's a threat. Okay, so these are the news from this, frankly, my personal opinion, CIA crime syndicate member, Robert David Steele. And yeah, the reason why this is important to all of the victims is because the ITNJ has presented itself as a forum where you can bring child abuse cases, satanic ritual sacrifice cases, and so on. And it has, I believe, pooled very good people, okay, both as trustees and as commissioners, and as people made testimonies who are very good. But I think that behind the scenes, there is something nefarious going on. And I truly believe that the good people are being used. My biggest problems with the ITNJ, apart from the cartel signaling, the Masonic cartel signaling, is that I think the ITNJ does not have an enforcement arm. Even if they did bring some decision against any of the perpetrators, which I haven't seen them, you know, undertake anything to do after all the testimonies they have already heard. Even if they did bring a judgment, which I don't think they will, they don't have an enforcement arm. So, in other words, you are exposing yourself. I mean, you are exposing facts, which is a good thing. Okay, so you always have to expose yourself to some degree to bring those facts out. But I also think that you have even less of a chance of getting you have no chance of getting compensation, in fact, because the ITNJ does not have the power to grant you compensation, even if they wanted to. They do not have the power to grant you legal relief, even if they wanted to. So what exactly are they pretending to do? Well, they are pretending to bring to the public awareness these crimes, which I think is laudable. And that's exactly what those very good people are doing. For example, John Wedger, the police officer from the UK, he did an amazing job, just to name one person off the top of my head, to bring crimes to the public's knowledge. His video testimony is there, and I can quote it in court, right? But you can do all that separately. You don't need to tie it in with the cartel signaling of the ITNJ. You don't have to have a bishop there, a CIA operative, and, you know, a guy whose private foundations all have Jesuit and you know, all seeing eye symbolism. You know, you don't need that. You can just make public testimonies under oath. The only thing you need to do is at the beginning of the video, you read out the oath as recognized by the US or the UK courts. And there you have your public testimony. You don't need all that. Okay, so that's my issue with the ITNJ. What I'm fighting for is for relief against targeting and for compensation. Both things. Okay, that's why for me the ITNJ is absolutely, you know, beside the point. And I'm worried about their cartel signaling, and I'm worried about the people who they put at the front. And I got especially worried when these people started sending threatening emails to Kevin Annette, and now they send threatening emails to me. I do not think that this is what the chief counsel, so-called, that's what Robert David Steele is at the ITNJ, should be doing. And I don't think that's what a founder, that's what Sasha Stone claims to be, claims, yeah, to be, should be doing. Sorry, I'm getting confused with the grammar. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say today. I have so much to go through. Okay, I might do a video fairly soon about other topics, but I have to have this for the record. Now, there's also this thing going around that, oh, if you publish evidence, then, you know, you can't use it in court. I don't think that's true. If it's true, it has to be challenged for the reason that this is an ongoing live genocide and the war. People and witnesses and litigants are being murdered. They are surviving assassination attempts. They are being threatened. They are being tortured. They are being maimed. So I'm sorry, we need to publish these things for our own protection. Okay, and besides, this whole thing of publishing it ahead of time, I mean, you will have to publish it eventually anyway to both sides. The only worry is, are you biasing say, a jury against whoever you're accusing. Well, there's no jury trial in the London High Court. Okay, so, okay, and the judge's job is to precisely be able to judge for himself, right? Despite both parties' best attempts to manipulate him. So a judge can't claim, oh my God, I saw this email ahead of time and now I'm so biased. Well, if you're biased by reading evidence, you shouldn't be a judge. You know, move along, recuse yourself. So that's just my view. But the core issue for me is that when I'm getting threats, or I have to document attacks like, you know, my the glass above my bed shattering in the middle of the night, this is for my protection. You need to be aware that Jean-Philippe Gaudin, the head of Swiss Intel, is doing things like that to me, and he's working for Alex Younger, head of MI6. And it was British Intel who started the overt terror campaigns against me, and it was British Intel who implanted me to start with, as far as I'm aware. I'm pretty sure they implanted me. I've got serious, you know, evidence for that, and I can quote certain things for that, right? So for this reason, I'm publishing these things. But anyway, that's enough for me. Thank you so much for listening. Always remember that what I'm presenting here is not just for my benefit. I want you to know what's going on in the world. I want you to know how you can fight back. I want you to know what sort of shit they come with. And most importantly, I want you all to not be intimidated by these guys. Okay? Never, ever be intimidated. Never, ever give an inch, and just fight back. The more they come with their stupid proletarian threats, right, the more we have to push back. So thank you very much for listening. Have a wonderful weekend, and bye for now.